Mike Yao at Savage Kingdom's role-playing game, Fire in the Head Productions. Just wanted to do a quick video for the Kickstarter coming up. So the quick Kickstarter campaign launches March 15th, the Ides of March. Typically we do a 30-day Kickstarter. I've done 5 in the past, but they say that's the best. But I'm actually going to go for a 40 because there are several people I know who are paid sort of on a net 30 basis, like only once a month. And so that actually gives 10 more days to perhaps have a couple people chip in where they originally couldn't at the beginning of the campaign. So we're going to go a 40-day. We're looking to raise $9,000. That's the most I've ever asked for, but we've gotten close to that before in the Savage Kingdoms Reforged edition of Savage Kingdoms about 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago. So this is, of course, 3rd edition Savage Kingdoms. I'm talking about right here. So that is my game line, of course. A few of you might have heard of it. Most of you probably haven't. It's a small, independent, heroic sword and sorcery role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game. That's kind of what I sort of market it as. Originally, it was very sword and sorcery, very the Hyborian Age of Conan meets Fafhrd and Greymouth, the traditional sort of sword and sorcery, sword and sandals stuff, and then it kind of morphed a little bit to definitely not high fantasy. I'm not a huge high fantasy fan other than Lord of the Rings, which is more grounded high fantasy. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. So it kind of morphed a little more into Game of Thrones-ish, which is still dark and gritty, but not necessarily sword and sorcery. Sort of early Middle Ages, whereas sword and sorcery tends to be set in sort of antiquated age. So it's kind of a amalgamation of both of those. Although in this edition, we may actually be slightly headed back to slightly more towards sword and sorcery. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So this will be the 3rd edition of Savage Kingdoms. So what's different? I've done some other videos in the past, but I'm going to try to nutshell this whole thing for the Kickstarter page. So what's different, you ask, for 3rd edition Savage Kingdoms as opposed to 2nd and 1st? Okay, so the 1st edition came out in 2014, so it's actually only been 6 years. However, for a small independent game, 3 editions in 6 years is actually not super unusual because you have to kind of get, the way you stay known is to hopefully continue in a game line, but a full game line tends to peter out in a small independent game. So studies have it, and my own research and experience in this field for over 40 years shows that 80% of your sales are core rule books. So the marketing reason behind that is that we're just trying to get it. But the main reason, the one I'm excited about, is the creative reason. So 3rd edition, or Savage Kingdoms 3, is much more streamlined. I've reduced the head math a little bit. A lot of things are tweaked. I can't obviously go into the complete detail, but it's basically the same game, but it's the math is a lot quicker. It runs even faster. You get 2 actions in a combat round instead of a primary and 2 symbols, which I actually thought was a pretty decent system. But with a 2-action system, it's so much quicker. It's very fast. The only thing you have to remember is that you only get 1 attack action of the 2 actions unless you have a special talent that allows you to do so, or you spend the luck point to gain a 3rd action, etc., etc. So within the game, there are ways around that, as any good role-playing game should have. So yeah, that's a couple things. Like I said, the math is so much quicker. It's lower. Therefore, the difficulty levels are lower. In general, they're scaled down by about 5. So if you do have 1st and 2nd edition Savage Kingdoms, and you, in general, if you just scale the numbers down by 5, for the most part, 80% of the time, you're actually going to be kind of in the ballpark of Savage Kingdoms 3. So let's see, what else is new? Callings. So in the past, we had life paths. And life paths were just kind of non-mechanical. They were suggested ways to build a character because it's a non-class based system. So say you wanted to build an assassin, there was like a life path saying, well, here's a suggested talent shoot to take and the skills that you should perhaps specialize in, and maybe even some weaknesses that you would take that would fit that sort of theme. So now we have callings. So callings are basically life paths that are more mechanical. So they now give you benefits. So in the past and in third edition, your race and culture makes a huge difference because you can get favored talents. Every race and culture has pays less for certain talents because it's just part of their culture. In addition to a couple other racial abilities that they may get. So callings kind of do the same thing. So, if, for example, say you're a Tharaki barbarian or a Tharakian berserker. There's no barbarian calling because that's actually a cultural thing. But so berserker would be kind of the closest thing. So with a lot of the brutal, particularly heavy combat abilities, you're probably going to get a favored talent through your race as a Thracian. I'm just using that as an example, but also through your calling as a berserker. Uh, so you could pay 2 points for a 4 point talent, or 1 point for a 3 point talent. No talent reduces beyond 1 point, though. One is the minimum unless you get it specially as a racial ability. For example, Aluna Shi and I think Dark Shi as well get magic affinity as a free talent because they're just born gifted with magic. In fact, they're so good and used to magic, they don't even really know that's what it is. It's just a natural part of nature or the Luna Quale. But again, that's a whole different thing. So many ideas for cool videos. So that's a new thing. Callings, better head math. There's a bulk system with equipment now. Which I thought I was being creative and original. And then I realized Pathfinder 2 had like a similar system, but that's fine. That means that we're all thinking on the same. So basically, instead of keeping track of every single pound, there's a bulk system. So roughly a 15 to 20 pound object might equate to bulk 1, but not always true. A bag of feathers would be probably bulk 1, but it probably only actually weighs like a pound and a half, 2 pounds. So it just kind of depends. That's just the ballpark. So it's a little easier again because one of the design goals of Savage Kingdoms 3 is just kind of reduce the numbers a little bit, and that's always been a goal of Savage Kingdoms in general. That's why the experience point system is scaled down. You get 1 experience point, 1 XP per hour of play. At the end of the session, you get a bonus point if you're voted by your group as the best role player for the evening, or the GM can assign it. I highly suggest to let the players do it. That way the GM doesn't have to do it, but he can break ties, which he comes as in Game Master. What else? Okay, well, we're at about 7 minutes, so I don't want to take this over long. So, yes, the Kickstarter campaign will start in 5 days at the time of this recording, March 15th, the Ides of March, which I thought was a sort of cool, fortuitous time to start it. It will run all the way till whatever 40 days is after that, April 25th, I think, 24th, 25th. So help us make our goals. We need $9,000, and that's to pay. I'm already in negotiations with some awesome artists that have already sent resumes and samples of their art. One guy's already even like designed some stuff for me, and it's like cool. Probably looking for a graphic designer. Loud is there's a couple people talking to, but I'm not sure it's going to work. So anyway, but it's all good. The book is 99% written and edited. I've just got a couple more tweaks to do before I kind of hand it off, and then I'll go to layout and art insertion, etc. So if the Kickstarter makes, we're looking at physical copies of the hardcover books and as well as the digital copies by July. So please support. When you see the Kickstarter page, which launches again in 5 days, you'll see there's various reward levels. I think there's like 7 or 8, I think 8 different levels of things. And of course, the more you contribute, the more you back. Like any other Kickstarter, the more your rewards are. But the main thing is hopefully you're helping to contribute to the project and make it a realization. Savage Kingdoms 3, small independent game, but the people that do my playtesters and the people that are fans are like hugely hardcore. I'm so excited and impressed and honored that's the case. Again, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a small game, but hopefully we'll make it bigger. We'll bring it out there more now that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and role-playing in general has now become to the forefront of pop culture again. I've used Savage Kingdoms to teach RPG camps. I run RPG camps for kids from 10 to 17. I've done after-school Dungeons & Dragons clubs as well. I teach improv and acting as well. I'm an actor. But to me, tabletop role-playing segues well with performance art and improv, obviously. So all of those, to me, at least in my head and in my experience and background, they're all actually intertwined. So the kids, weirdly enough, most of them have preferred Savage Kingdoms over Dungeons and Dragons 5, which is cool. I like D&D 5 well enough, but I was really kind of surprised that some of these younger kids were dialing into Savage Kingdoms, which is slightly more complex, but in some ways not, because it actually only uses the one die, and sometimes the other dice types gets confusing. But it's a little darker and sword and sorcery-ish. So I just kind of back those elements out for when the kids play. But anyway, I thought that was a cool little side note that it has been used for educational purposes as well. So March 15th through April 25th, please back the project. Love you guys for doing so. Tell people about it, and hopefully we will make our goal and be awesome and bring this product to you guys. All right. Thanks for listening and putting up with 10 minutes of this stuff, and I'll talk to you soon.